If you're an avid Gran Turismo player or watched or attended the World Finals in Barcelona earlier this month, you'd have been hard-pressed to miss the launch of the new Genesis Vision Gran Turismo car. Genesis Design North America's senior chief designer John Krsteski and Gran Turismo series creator Kazunori Yamauchi pulled the covers off the sleek and extremely orange hypercar during the Manufacturers Cup live stream on Saturday, December 2nd, right in the middle of the arena. GTPlanet was granted unprecedented access to the car and its designers, courtesy of Genesis Motor Europe. We spoke to Krsteski for a guided tour of the car's exterior, while Chris Ha, senior interior manager, talked us through the vehicle's cabin. One of the things that struck us particularly was that while a number of Vision GT cars can be on the wild side, the Genesis design appeared to have a lot of plausibility about it.
We wanted to, because everything we do, we always want to make sure there's a level of feasibility and realism that we bring to it, and it's not something that's maybe just a fantasy. So with this, proportionally, the center of the car, we worked with our packaging engineer to make sure that we had the placement of the engine in the front adequately placed relative to the cockpit, and at the same time being able to put the battery power in the rear.
It's not just the vehicle packaging either, with the car sporting a number of interesting lines and aerodynamic solutions. And we were curious how the Vision GT's design process worked with regards to aero.
A lot of the designers will freestyle something that they think works, and then quickly that looks cool, and then they quickly realize that, okay, wait a minute, that may look cool, but it actually is horrible for aero. So then once we get the results back and they show us the analysis, the aero team is really great, and you can hold on to kind of what you're doing, but you need to adjust this by 3 degrees, and then you need to add either a crease line through that section to help control some of the way the air flows through there. So it's a really finite process working with the aero team to try to at least take what we've initially started design-wise and then be able to refine it. And there's certain things, and the aero team, they're like artists in a lot of ways, because they know exactly where you could put a little blade or a little inlet, and what you do with underneath the car as well, to try to maybe offset some of the things that you want to accomplish design-wise that maybe not helpful for aero. And it's one of those things too, is you want function, but not at the expense of beauty, and then you don't want it to just be beautiful and not functional. So that constant negotiation between the groups was vital to the process.
That, in part, has resulted in things like the front wing section, with the pass-through under the upper nose and similar elements at the rear. These sections did cause something of a headache for the initial clay model, with the rear cutouts being particularly difficult to sculpt with the usual techniques, resulting in a more modern solution.
And I can't tell you the clay modelers, when we were working on that, and when we milled it out, and it's funny because we couldn't get the mill to go inside of that pocket area, and I'm like, okay, we need to cut that out. And they're like, what do you mean we need to cut? No, I'm like, no, we need to cut that out because we need the tail lamps to go through. So that's when literally we were mixing a lot of 3D printed parts into the clay model itself to try to get it to hold its surface and then make sure everything's still transitioned beautifully.
Another eye-catching feature of the Genesis is those large multi-spoke wheels, which Genesis designed in-house too.
I mean, the wheel design is such a challenging thing to do, and especially because there's so many amazing designers out there and people who specialize in wheel design as well. We did all our own wheel designs in-house with our team, and it's the same designers that are working on the whole exterior, because I think that the designer who's doing the exterior has a feeling for the kind of wheel that he wants on the car. And sure, there could be several other designs that may look good on here, but I think that first initial read of what the wheel should look like comes from the designer of the car.
Maybe the most obvious part of the car of all is that extremely striking paint, magma orange, which made its debut on the GV80 Coupe concept earlier this year. It symbolizes not only Korea's volcanoes and culture, but the literal genesis of volcanic activity. Key to Genesis, though, is the fact that despite being such a departure from its normal sedan and SUV offerings, the VGT still looks like a Genesis. And that, in part, comes down to the continuation of the signature 2 lines.
It's one of those things that when we first came to, obviously with our Genesis identity, and you know, you heard the story on the wing badge becoming our two-line signature.
Yes.
And then that two-line started to the front, but it's like, all right, well, what's keeping it from going further and further and further? And then literally wrapping it around the whole front clip of the car. And yeah, we thought that why not push it to that extreme?
We were also fortunate enough to be granted exclusive access to the vehicle's cabin. While production Genesis models are pretty plush and well-appointed, the VGT is a more Spartan environment, obviously designed for motorsport, but still with Genesis touches.
What we're always doing in Genesis is, we're always designing around the user.
Right.
We're always trying to make it the most comfortable, the most functional at the same time, and obviously aesthetically pleasing or beautiful. I mean, for us in every project, we're always approaching it from the driver out. That's the most important. As long as he or she is, hitting those ergonomic points, because ergonomics is probably king for us. It's got to be number one.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel right, we scrap it. That's kind of what drove the theme is we put the driver in there, and then you see these forms being sculpted around.
Yeah.
And so this is where the sculpture of the monocoque comes from.
There's just one seat in the cabin, which does feature signature Genesis quilting and plenty of Alcantara suede, but ultimately it's a necessity to protect and guide the driver's body towards the controls. This too shows the two-line philosophy with a ridge down the center of the driver's seat in a neat detail.
We hide it here and there, sometimes subtly, sometimes in your face. You can kind of see it subtly in the air blade. So that two lines really kind of wraps around the driver.
PlayStation gamers should instantly recognize the car's steering wheel, which has been designed to resemble the famous DualShock, now DualSense controller, the basic format of which has barely changed in over 20 years.
That was really fun. I mean, actually, that was one of the first things we gravitated to was what if we used the controller as inspiration? It would be really cool.
Exactly.
So we did a lot of test prints. So 3D printing, just to make sure the ergonomics are feeling right. And I think we had probably 6 different iterations to get it comfortable.
Visibility is a key component of the design too, with Genesis employing VR in the design process to ensure everything is where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, visibility, first and foremost, through the actual transparencies, and then through the screen, the panoramic display. So this is something that we really wanted to emphasize.
Krsteski also points out an exterior detail informed by the use of VR in the design process, which some fans might have spotted in the trailers.
And originally in the design, we had a camera that was on the shoulder, or a small mirror camera on the shoulder. When we were sitting inside the cockpit and looking out in the position of where we had the mirror there, really felt like it wasn't positioned right. So we went to the camera as a place that there and actually took the mirror off the shoulder. And then if you notice, even some of the press shots, we still have some that have the mirror and some that have that on there.
Perhaps the most notable aspect of the car as a whole is that the design is not too distant from being production ready.
I mean, we never know if that's a possibility or not. We never know the momentum, the timing of everything. But I always feel that from a design perspective, if you could bring it to a level of believability in its design and take all the consideration in place, if the stars align and you are able to move forward with this and turn it into an actual production program, then that's at least that it's not going to be a huge tear up to your design. And that's always a lot of what happens sometimes. And you put this sort of dream image of what you want out there, and then put the precision of engineering and everything else into it. Then when it actually does come out in production, you hear about it. You hear about how, show car looked better. Because everyone loves to compare exactly the concept car to the production car.
While Genesis has never made a car of this type before, Krsteski believes that concepts of this type could kickstart the brand's desire to create one.
They're incredible communication tools because we may believe in it, but in any organization, maybe 100% of the group doesn't understand it until you can actually materialize it for them.
Yes.
And then sometimes you have to really lead the way and show them that no, it is a possibility. And through through exercise like this, obviously with the partnership with Gran Turismo, and you start to plant that seed, and then let that catch momentum and see how far it can take you.
Potentially, it could go very far. Some may have noticed a glimpse at the very end of the video revealing that a second version of the vehicle with a large rear wing was briefly visible. Could it preview a racing model of the car or a future hypercar entry for the group, which has been successful in World Rally recently?
We figured we'd put in a little teaser of something in there, so I don't know. Can't say anything more than that. There's such a high ceiling on the possibility that, hey, let's see how far we can push it.